Hey everyone, it's Aaron Hughes from FuDog Group, and I am here still in Seaside Park working with my business partners Mike and Jennifer to get ready for our in-person event happening next week called Seekers of Power. We are finishing up the event, the agenda, and all the stuff that you need. We're finishing up that here in New Jersey, and then we're going to load up some vehicles and drive to Connecticut just in a day or two and set up and get ready for the event. I'm really excited about it. In this video, I want to share with you a great question that you can ask your team that will really get them thinking about how to work more efficiently. It's a question that you may not think to ask, or you've been asking a similar question, but a question that's been getting you different answers. And I want to suggest that you consider asking this question that I'm about to tell you, because it's going to give you a different set of answers and help push your team to think about being more efficient. And so first I'll say the question that a lot of people tend to ask their team is something like, how do we double results? How do we double our results? And this question is okay, but what often happens when you ask that question is you end up like initiating this brainstorming session, and everyone's like coming up with ideas, and so invariably people will be like coming up with some wild ideas, and you'll get some golden nuggets for sure, but you'll get some dud ideas or stuff you've tried that the team isn't aware, or I know in the past when I've asked this type of question in other settings, people will be like, oh, well, we should be doing this kind of advertising and that kind of advertising and this kind of advertising, even though they have no advertising experience. And I do like that the team is trying to kind of come up with creative ways to help double results. But it ends up, in my experience, it ends up being kind of this like blue sky brainstorming session that doesn't always turn into actionable, like valuable, actionable things that you can do right now. And so it's an okay question, but I think there's a better question to ask. And I think that question is, how do we double production? How do we double production? So instead of asking, how do we double results, and looking at the end goal, and then everyone's brainstorming about the results, ask, how do we double production? Because now you're kind of pushing the ball down and getting everyone to think about their own specific efforts and what they can do to increase those efforts. You're kind of like it's moving it from like this sort of like blue sky brainstorming session for people to now get really introspective and think about their own work and workload. And so I asked this question recently to a team member, how can we double production? And at first they were thinking about how do we double results, but then I just repeated the question, like, no, we want to talk about production. What can we do to double production? And it just changed the whole question, or the whole thinking that they had, and then the answers that they gave. What happens is when you ask this question to your team, they start to think about their own workload. And it's really valuable because everyone feels that they're busy, and if you're structuring your team and you're leading them effectively, they probably and hopefully are busy. And so people will think like, oh man, how do I double what I'm doing? I'm already busy. I'm already maxed out every day. How do I double that? And they can kind of panic a little bit in the first minute of the question, of thinking about the question. But then as a leader, it's your job to help give them ideas and guidance to find a good answer to that question. Because there's always ways that you can improve your efficiency, productivity, and so on, and help your team do the same. And you can double your production often, or you can get your team to double their production often by prompting them to think differently about some of their work. So, maybe it includes, hiring another staff member, or maybe it includes like getting some software that will help, or just hiring an outside resource that can come in and do this one thing. Or maybe it's like, instead of doing this and this, we could do this. And so there is some creative brainstorming involved, but I like the answer to this question a lot better because people tend to start to look inward and then they ask themselves about their own processes and they ask themselves about their own efficiency. And sometimes you end up finding ways that people can become more efficient just by slightly shifting how they work. And sometimes you find ways to, as an organization, become more efficient, maybe through some new technology or an additional team member and that kind of thing. So I like the answers to the question, how do we double production? So consider that for your team, and this applies for pretty much anything, like whether you're running your own business, whether you're leading a team at a company, but it also applies to your own health. For example, say fitness or diet and that type of thing. You can, instead of saying like, how do I double my results in this area, ask yourself, how do you double your production? How do you double your production of like a fitness regime or of a better diet, for example? And you'll get very interesting answers. They won't all be amazing things that you can do right away, but I do like the answers that you get better for this question than to ask, how do we double results? So maybe take that as a takeaway for this week. At some point this week, if you're leading your team or even if you're thinking about it yourself, ask yourself, how do we double production? And I think you'll like the answers that you get. All right, everyone, have an amazing day.